am an African.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Africa for Dummies, where we keep you updated on all things Africa. Before diving into our main topic of discussion, let's briefly touch on some recent news across the continent. We had a week full of protests, starting with the most recent ones. Protests in Nigeria. Last week, many Nigerians took to the streets of Abuja to express their dissatisfaction with the rising food and fuel prices in a country where the cost of living was already high. Inspired by similar protests in Kenya, these demonstrations unfortunately resulted in the death of about 7 people at the hands of security forces. While these protests have gained support on social media, organizations like the Nigeria Labour Congress and the National Association of Nigerian Students have distanced themselves from the movement. Protests in Uganda. Similarly, protests occurred in Kampala, Uganda. According to an article by Gilbert Nuwagira, these protests have arisen because, quote, ordinary people are tired of passively accepting elite misrule. Just for context, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has been in office for about 38 years. Rwanda and Congo have a ceasefire agreement. In other news, Rwanda and Congo have agreed to a ceasefire in a deal organized by Angola. However, a digital newspaper company named Political accused the EU of fueling the conflict. The growing demand for electric cars and microchips has intensified mining activities in eastern Congo, which borders with Rwanda. This region has a long history of conflict dating back to the genocide against the Tutsis. Recently, the EU signed a mineral agreement with Rwanda, which Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi called, quote, a provocation in very bad taste. On some positive news, the city of Cape Town will open a 300-bed safe space in Greenpoint to address the high levels of homelessness in Cape Town. Lastly, 3 mayors in Uganda were recognized by the USAID for their efforts in increasing local revenue. That was it for the This Week in Africa segment. Now for our main discussion. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the main topic of discussion. Here by King's College, right? King's College finest, Mr. Zenge Makoloi. Sorry for dropping the government name, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, full disclosure, I'm not even with King's College anymore. That was my
right,
alumnus. That's
yeah,
basically it. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here. First time in a bit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's great to be back. Hopefully again we'll try to improve our consistency. For our main topic of discussion today, I was going through some articles, so you're reading some articles from things going on across Africa, and this one kind of caught my eye because it's something I'm also a little bit interested in. But according to an article written by the New York Times, the author specifically, his name is Max Berak. Hopefully, I'm not butchering the name. The article reads AI needs copper, and it just helped to find millions of tons of it. Quote, the deposit in Zambia could make billions for Silicon Valley, provide minerals for the energy transition, and help the United States in its rivalry with China. And
Mm.
the article goes on to sort of talk about how Cobalt, which is a new mining company in Zambia, that's owned by, I believe, Bill Gates and a few other tech billionaires in the US.
Yeah, there's some
Uh,
shares like
yeah,
stakeholders.
precisely. And Zambia has 20% shares in this particular company. And basically, they used AI to apparently find one of the largest copper deposits that they've discovered, particularly in Zambia, in like the last within the last decade. And also, the United States is making doing some other projects within this area of Africa to. I think one of them is to improve the delivery of minerals from the south. So I think through Angola, I believe, that area to basically the U.S. And yeah, I just wanted to discuss this and see what your thoughts are because uh, it's really interesting to me that first of all, I think there was another article I read. I wish I could find out from where, but it was interesting that they listed 10 countries that were ready for artificial intelligence within Africa, and Zambia wasn't even mentioned there. Which it's quite understandable because Zambia is needs electricity. I mean, AI needs electricity, and Zambia's kind of not doesn't produce enough electricity right now to meet demand. Um, and yet, AI just helped discover like a huge ton of it. And also, the other thing I was interested in is trying to figure out if Zambia is preparing itself for this, because clearly the US and other, especially Western countries, are preparing themselves for what's sort of going on in terms of with the advancements in AI. More microchips, better microchips are required, and other countries are now preparing to improve their energy production, because most of these AI systems require more energy. And I don't know if Zambia is going to leverage. My question is, how is Zambia going to use this to improve itself? Because my concern is, I hope that, being a Zambian, that Zambia doesn't end up being like the similar story with other situations where it's simply just gaining, dividends, and not really we're not really seeing the fruits of it. And I think Zambia can really milk this more for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when this cobalt discovery or confirmation, I think it was quite known for a while that there were huge deposits just lying around there that haven't been exploited yet. But cobalt actually put the muscle of money and AI technology around it to confirm. Um, it was a big deal, I think, in Zambia. And even the president announced it. Everyone was talking about it. And I think some people were also quite nervous because the last time such a huge discovery was found was in the 1920s.
Wow.
And Zambia's colonization was getting consolidated as Northern Rhodesia at that time. Um, so I think um, it's a huge discovery, it's monumental, but it comes at a time of great political rivalry, as you said.
Mhm.
And, Zambia's history has been anchored on copper. Like,
True.
I think there's a book that this this mineral historian I'm following uh just made. I forgot his name. I'll put the link down. Um, it was
Is
called the
it?
Copper Spoon Children,
Okay.
the Copper Spoon Children um, of Africa, which is the nickname Zambians in the heyday of copper. The second, when Zambia was the second largest copper producer in the world. Now it's the seventh, which is still huge. It was the second largest copper producer in the world in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Um, and at that time, Zambia built a railway line just to sort of give a picture of the geopolitical rivalry. Zambia built Zambia and China and Tanzania built a railway line, with the Tanzania-Zambia railway line, Tazara,
Azar.
from central province of Zambia, in Kapiri, to Dar es Salaam, the port city of Tanzania. And the president at that time was Kenneth Kaunda and Julius Nyerere. Kaunda built it because of the necessity to divert traffic exports flows from Zambia into South Africa, which Zambia was basically on a um, offensive, or let's say Cold War of some kind, against apartheid South Africa, the white minority, Rhodesia, Namibia, which was also part of apartheid South Africa, Angola, Portuguese Mozambique. So basically, all our enemies were surrounding us, and we decided, you know what, let's just build a railway line going to the east with the only independent African country apart from the DR Congo into Tanzania to the east, northeast. So that was in the 1970s. It started in the late 1960s to the early 1970s. Zambia had asked other countries, but China was the only country which itself was very poor at the time, probably even poorer than Zambia per capita. And it decided, you know what, let's just give you guys the money to build this railway line. Of course, nothing comes for free, right? Then they were like,
Hmm.
yeah, you can go back in like 30 years, it's fine, just build the railway line.
Hmm.
And railway lines are extremely expensive to build. Um, it's important to know also, it's not like Zambia was like being a vassal state of China. There's the road that led to the east. Several arteries were being built to the east
Mhm.
from Lusaka and the Copperbelt to Dar es Salaam. There was a
Mhm.
road which was built by US aid. From Then there was an oil pipeline, Tanzania, Zambia, um, the oil pipeline, petroleum pipeline that used to transport oil from the sea to um, the Copperbelt, which needed the most oil, obviously, because that was the engine of the economy. So that was made by a World Bank financing. So it wasn't like China was the only one that was giving Zambia stuff. But the biggest and most expensive project at that time, in fact, was probably the biggest and most expensive development aid project at that time. Full stop. It's definitely China's biggest like debut into. That's when China started development construction. Um, and yeah, so China accepted. Other countries said, "Oh, it's too costly to take so long and so long and blah blah," and it's all of these
Mhm.
like tedious things or the procedure. China just did it, and Zambia had the rail line by before 1975. Um, as I said, this doesn't necessarily come for free. Um, as this thing was being built, China was also China. When I say China, I mean the People's Republic of China, the Communist China was trying to fill the seat of the China that used to be um, in Beijing. So there was the Communist China and the Comintern China. The Republic of China, I'm confusing you. So
Yeah.
there's the Republic, which is now Taiwan, right?
Okay.
Before, the Republic of China was in what is now the People's Republic of China. It was in Beijing,
Yeah.
right? So the communists took over. And when the communists took over, at that time, China as the Republic of China had a seat in the UN Security Council, a permanent seat like Britain, America,
Mhm.
uh, France, and Russia. So it was a bit awkward because the China that was being represented at the UN was not necessarily the China in Beijing, in the capital, because they had fled to Taiwan, the what is now Taiwan, officially the Republic of China, ROC, not the People's Republic of China. So the Communist China was lobbying to get onto the seat and basically kick out uh, the non-communist China, for simple terms. And Africa came in with a lot of votes. Africa is the biggest voting bloc in the UN. So when a country needs votes, if you want to be a superpower, you just basically come and say, "Hey, my African friends, we're cool, right? Give me
Mhm.
some votes."
Mhm. Mhm.
So basically Zambia was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, of course we'll give you a vote." Why? Because we built you a railway line.
I see.
So there's a bit of an exchange.
Yeah.
Zambia was one of the countries that voted for China to join the UN Security Council in exchange for the massive railway line, which basically was like a lifesaver because we couldn't be ideologically opposed to white minority rule and apartheid when we were heavily dependent on them economically. So we needed an alternative. And China
Mhm.
was there. Of course, the US was there for the road and so on to a degree, but the China one was such a big project that it basically overshadowed all the others.
Mhm.
So we basically owed them. So my point is,
Yeah, it kind of went into a
yeah, it's
yeah, yeah, no, but it's
monopoly.
still necessary. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you need to know the history.
yeah. True, true.
There's so many moving plates around it. That's why you can't just say China built a railway line
Yeah,
and
yeah, true,
everything,
true, true.
happily ever after.
No,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah.
so what is happening now is there's a railway line being built from the Copper Belt. You mentioned the Lobito Corridor. That's what the official name is.
Yep.
From Zambia's, I think, northwestern of Copper Belt, both Copper Belt province, hence the name, is where the majority of Zambia's copper traditionally came from. But
Mhm.
in the recent like 20 years, the biggest copper mines are now in the northwestern
Yep.
province.
Yep.
Yeah, a little town which is now booming. It's growing quite fast, called Solwezi.
Yep.
Yeah, so funny enough, there's a little town on the other side of the border, near the Zambian border in
Always you.
Congo. Yeah, strange.
I
Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
I also find that very interesting because
Yeah, like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know who did it first, but there's something to do with coffee
Yeah,
right there.
because I have
Like,
family members who come from the Solwezi area and stuff, and I think in Solwezi they speak Zambian language called Kaonde, right? And
yeah.
I think if you just go across the border, it's kind of similar as well.
Always like a similar dialect.
I think, yeah. But it's
Mm.
interesting.
Probably. I mean, if
Kolwezi,
they have the same
Solwezi.
names,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They have the same names.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so the Lobito corridor is not a new concept. There's a lot of talk about it when you Google Lobito corridor. Like there's so many American media just like talking about it everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
oh, gigantic, US project for copper and so on. But like the Lobito corridor has been spoken of since Zambia's third president in the 2000s, early 2000s, Levi Patrick Manawasa.
Yeah.
He spoke about there's always been an issue of line of rail, like Zambia and many other African countries. The development has been around transport arteries that eventually lead to the ocean to
Mm-hmm.
export
Mm-hmm.
copper development into developed countries. So Zambia's
Precisely.
development has been around that. So the Lobito corridor was supposed to bring development to the western and northwestern part of Zambia,
Mm-hmm.
because that part was basically off the radar in terms of real transport, like railway lines, pipelines, roads, and things of that nature. Um, there's even the Nakala corridor. Nakala corridor is through Mozambique,
Mm-hmm.
going through Beria, which is on the Indian Ocean, to make Zambia land linked, as they say. Some people laugh at it, but look, the intention is good. It means basically using transport and logistics to connect your landlocked country into
Sure.
becoming um, linked with every other international trade route, sort of the Switzerland promised land, if you like, um, of landlocked countries. So the Lobito corridor goes to the west into
Precisely.
Angola. It ends in a place called Lobito, I think that's where the name comes from, and a port in Angola, on the coast of Angola in the Atlantic Ocean. So you have a situation where the first major railway line was built going to the south by the British, the Cape to Cairo railway
Mm.
line. That railway line ends up in the Copper Belt region of
Okay. Yeah.
Zambia. Because 100 years ago, copper was found. The second largest copper producer in the world was Northern Rhodesia and then Zambia. So that railway line was built specifically for that copper discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 1970s, you have China that builds, which
Those
makes
are.
itself contribute to the necessity of the anti-colonial struggle, built Tazara to the east. And now in the 1920s, you have the construction of the Lobito corridor to the west.
You said
So
1920s. You mean now? Like,
2020,
yes. Yeah.
yes, yeah, 100 years
Yeah.
later. So you have three different political spheres
Mm-hmm.
try that have historically made their mark on Zambia, or rather, let's say the Central African Copper Belt.
Yeah.
Uh, when I say this, I mean also the Katanga. It's not a province anymore. That's been broken up. So the
Oh.
Katanga region. Let me just say the
Yeah.
Katanga region. The remainder of Katanga province that's still called Katanga is Wet Katanga, but it's like smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that little
Yeah.
like finger that's
Yeah.
within and ends up yeah in Zambia. So I think that's why people are quite nervous, because in every three incidences, Zambians do not feel like they have
Gain.
benefited.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they partially benefited in the 60s, 70s, maybe, the so-called glory days of
Mm-hmm.
being copper school children, where from cradle to grave, your life was catered for by the government. You're born in a government hospital, government school, free meals,
Yeah.
great university. You went to a state-owned company and you worked there. You met your wife there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole classical, yeah. So
Zambian fairy tale.
yeah, Zambian fairy tale.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So that's why I think people are quite nervous about it. I think the AI
Precisely.
people are very excited and it looks
Exactly.
cool,
Yeah.
but I mean, when you go to some of these places, but I hear like Solwezi is coming up, but I don't know how. I haven't been to the Copper Belt in a while.
Yeah.
Uh, like there was an era where it was like kind of like a ghost, like you see
Yeah.
industry. Like you can
Yep.
see like, oh, this was, the big names, big brands. You could even afford like car assembly factories were coming, truck assembly factories. Um, and of course the government of Zambia is trying to spin something like, oh yeah, we're coming back and we're opening this and opening that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah. But it's clear that the US this has the backing of the US government because this is a critical mineral
Yeah, yeah.
for AI data centers and all
Precisely,
of
precisely.
these. Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere that like I think the US I was listening to this podcast, but the US has had like net zero net zero increase. Like there hasn't been an increase in the demand for electricity for like a long time now. Like it's been like net zero, I think, like in terms of demand and supply. And I think now they're projecting that they're going to need to produce like I think about 10%. I need to get the numbers right, but more electricity because of these AI data centers like really require like
Mm.
a lot of energy, and it seems like yeah. So like for me, I was just wondering if there was a way for like clearly the West, all the leaders in innovation, particularly with this AI thing, are going to need more of the minerals that we have. And the question is just simply like, how are there even examples of countries that have sort of utilized these positions to, you know, create gains for their society? You know, so
Yeah,
that's
I'm not like an AI expert, but like AI
yeah,
hasn't in its mass public consumption form that it is now hasn't been there for a while, for a long time. And
no, no,
the need, yeah, AI has been some form of artificial or machine learning has been there since the 60s. But in terms, like you can even say
yeah,
the
even way
computer has
back,
been 40s, but like it's not
yeah,
like a
yeah,
only
yeah.
public AI has been like really talked about in the last like 10
No,
years.
it's only gained, yeah, 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 a lot
Yeah.
of interest within the last like couple of years, yeah.
Yeah. So um like it's really that's why I really think that they should be like for those countries that are like for those listening who have heard my first the first episode where I was talking about my my dissertation small state agency. The idea is that you should be prepared for to be courted by superpowers who need something.
Hmm.
And this need for AI data centers and everything else, even batteries, I think it said you need how many more mines? Uh,
Um,
34 and 194 large new mines
yeah,
for
yeah,
copper
yeah. 35,
through to
yeah.
2050.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2050. And they said the production mostly for these, like this discovery in Zambia, will start in 2030. So
yeah,
these aren't within political terms. The current president of Zambia will be president for only 2 terms until
precisely.
2030. Yeah, unless something crazy happens, which rarely and quite unlikely, in
Yeah,
Zambia at least. In other countries, but
yeah,
but yeah, so essentially when when the actual money starts pumping out, the current president won't be there as
precisely.
president.
Yeah,
So and then they say in 2050, all of these, all of these new mines have to be created.
precisely.
And in 2050, Zambia will be about like 14 years from being 100.
Hmm.
So it requires a very long
Term plan.
like foresight and vision thinking. Like
Yeah.
the third president of Zambia started not agenda, sorry, Vision 2030. This
Mhm.
is 2024. Politically, time's up.
Yeah, true.
Politically, time's up. If you're supposed to achieve something for 2034, 2030, and you haven't achieved it now, you're probably not going to achieve it in
Precisely.
2030.
Yeah.
So like you need like Vision 2064 or Vision 2070 or Vision
Yeah, but
2060.
I
Like,
think I honestly think like because
and there's
country,
no,
I think a
yeah,
country that has sort of done that strategy where they've had a vision and are close to, I wouldn't say, I don't know if I would say close to achieving it, but like I've at least showed like some improvements in that is like a country like Rwanda. But then you could argue
yeah,
that that's simply because Rwanda has had one president for like the longest, you know what I mean,
exactly.
for the longest time. Whereas in Zambia, I think you have so many different forms of like govern like ideas in terms of like the
Mm.
you, for example, right now you have somebody who you could argue is more on the capitalist side of things, in
more
Hakainde
doubtful
Hichilema. And
about
then
that.
I don't want to say he's the main opposition, but he's the loudest. He's been very loud, which is a more socialist, take.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
to be able to actually see these gains, I think you really need to do like what we call in Zambia like an indaba, where you bring like everyone together and like literally say,
yeah,
okay, like in which direction, whatever leader comes in next. Particularly, I would say like with mining, because mines are like the heart of the
the bread
country.
and butter.
It's the
Yeah,
bread and butter of the country, and so it's like, okay, when it comes to mines, no matter who comes, this is what we have to follow. But I think that's very, very difficult to achieve. I think maybe for Zambia's democracy, maybe a more Switzerland type of situation could work. But then
yeah. I mean,
it's very costly to have like elections for or what do they call them? Like, because I think in Switzerland you vote for like almost
yeah,
every single, yeah,
direct,
exactly, almost every single
direct
thing.
representation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because Switzerland has like seven, technically seven presidents, although there's one who is they say first among equals,
Hmm.
who like is the guy that greets the foreign dignitaries. But in
Hmm.
terms of power, they're all the same, and they rotate every year. The president's only there for 1 year. The first among equal,
Hmm.
that guy, is only there for 1 year, and then so by in 7 years' time they will be. But yeah, Switzerland is a nice example. But Zambia has 20 million people. Switzerland has like less than 10,
I
you
see.
know,
Yeah.
less than 10. So it can happen, but I don't know how easy it would be to implement, because it's such a you really have to have some serious civic participation
Hmm.
and real levels of civic education and political education. Because how many Zambians will have an opinion on windfall tax?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, it's mostly, maybe it's just the intelligentsia. Like, you could be speaking in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah, everyone knows the windfall tax. Like, even I like need to revise what the windfall tax is every time a new budget comes out.
Hmm.
And I'm not even an economist. Economists, even when they explain it, sometimes I don't even get it. But like, for you to now vote on that, for example, for you to vote on so many things, I think some people will pick and choose when they want to vote,
Yeah.
because you can't tell people every single time. People, there's farmers, there's people who are harvesting. You can't be telling like some guy who's like supposed to be putting his seeds in, unless it's something that affects him.
Yeah.
So Zambia is far more vast in terms of size than Switzerland. But I think there's a lot of things to take from Switzerland, um, like to understand. But anyway, I think it's having foresight requires a degree of like everyone in the political class understands this is what the mission is,
Yeah.
because every single president that comes, and that's the thing, that's sort of us who are against democracy argue, like, changing presidents every time, everything you tweak and you
Somebody
change
else
this.
comes back and
Yeah,
completely
you raise
yeah,
this,
yeah,
nationalize the mines, then you read national, then you
yeah,
privatize, then you maybe
exactly.
give up, you come back again.
It's like you take two
And
steps
then maybe
forward and then you take like four back again. Like,
And then in every presidency, you have a little dose of corruption, or someone somewhere is guilty of something or accused of being
yeah,
guilty of something. So, it's always hard to think of a solution, but I think there should be, as you said, like some kind of endeavor to produce a um a strategic like agenda of what exactly Zambia should look like in 2064.
yeah,
Because right now you have to know, you have to be prepared. It's like, you have visitors at your house, and then you're like, yeah, 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 sure, come, but you have no money for juice, like you have nothing, like nothing in your house. And you have nothing to say, like you have no agenda for the
yeah,
people that want what you have. And
yeah,
when you don't have any agenda, they'll do whatever they want. Like it will come, they'll do whatever. You have no restrictions or no particular idea of what exactly you're going to get out of it. I mean,
yeah,
they do say Zambia owns a bit of the, is it the cobalt mine or the mine that's in Zambia?
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
They have 20% shares in Coco, I believe.
Yeah. But what are you going to do with that 20%?
That's the
Like, is there's
question.
no, yeah, like it's a share, and then okay, great. Like I feel like the current government is very happy, very excited. But most of the things they're doing is like statutory, like making business easier.
Yeah,
There's no strategic, like long term.
long term plan.
Ultimately,
Yeah,
this is what these big investments are going to contribute. Like
yeah,
this is what Zambia would look like with tangible things. Like this is
Yeah.
where our Human Development Index should be.
Yeah.
We should be an upper middle income country at this
Yeah.
time. Average Zambian should be able to afford this at this time, so that you
Yeah.
can say, okay, this is what you said and you have failed, or this is what you said and you have succeeded, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I think. Sorry to cut you off, man. But
yeah, no problem.
I think that this AI, this whole new AI, because everyone's saying like data is the new oil type of thing.
Mm,
I think it really gives Zambia, like, and other African countries, a really big opportunity. Because not only can you look at it from a perspective of like, oh, what are we going to be doing with the money we're going to be getting from this and stuff like that, but also I think it also shows us that we could, in terms of our the human resources, like, what can we now teach the kids in order to be able to, like, you know in this new AI world, like, now we have to like start pumping in like more digital education, and because,
mhm.
like, in Zambia, bro, you're still learning about Shaka Zulu's horn formation, all that type of stuff,
Ah,
and which I think is important. It's still important, but I still think like it's also vital to also like now start diving into some of these like digital uh fields, because now you have cobalt, and as stated, you have like 50. We're supposed to have like what, almost 100 new mines or something for copper.
195 new large mines. Is it
Exactly.
195?
We could train our people to sort of be able to help run some of these things
Yeah,
at high levels, and also yeah, as I said before, like, just having that indaba is very, I think, very important. I think particularly when it comes to mining, I think like Zambia really needs to have like a high level of accountability. I
yeah,
think like there should be like more
yeah.
accountability
That's
and more, you know
yeah. It's like a greenfield opportunity.
yeah.
You know, when you have the ability to control what you're going to do with your minerals and control how people exploit your minerals, it normally works out much better, given that your governance is good. Um, I think the example is always Botswana.
Yeah.
Botswana has a lot of minerals, but it didn't fall into the same trap that other countries, you know, like Nigeria and many of these countries have fallen into, whether it's oil, whether it's bauxite, whether it's gold, diamonds.
Mhm.
And Botswana, although they do claim that, okay, yes, Botswana's diamonds were found after independence. So the DNA of that diamond exploration, or rather diamond exploitation, was that of an independent African government. Whereas the DNA of Zambia's original copper DNA exploitation was a colonial government. And we already talked about the railway lines, but even the taxes, even the way the money is distributed. Um, so I think it ultimately comes up to governance. And it's good that you have said like learning about sort of artificial intelligence in schools.
Yeah.
I think in South Africa, the sort of new government of national unity, we actually did an episode on that one, like three episodes of the African election, before, during, and after. Um, they have now, I think I've seen in a publication somewhere, I think it's the Daily Maverick, I'm not sure which newspaper, they have introduced coding, for mandatory coding
Mhm.
in schools from reception. He said grade R. That could be reception, I don't know.
Yeah.
But from a very early age up to grade 9.
Yeah.
So that means you're basically training a generation to understand and be native to coding. And a country like Zambia, coding just seems so remote, like just in your
Mhm.
day-to-day speech,
Yeah.
amongst as learning about coding and AI in and of itself seems remote. And yet the main minerals for that are
Yeah.
going to be from this country, from
Exactly.
Zambia.
It just seems odd
Uh,
to me.
yeah, so I think, and another thing also, and I keep on like stressing this idea of foresight. Like, we don't even have a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. Dubai has, you know,
I
not
mean,
divided. The
yeah, but then
UAE,
like we
but
we
like I mean,
yeah, yeah. And go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I'm just saying it
Yeah.
would make a lot of. It sounds like a bit ridiculous because there is no actual like artificial intelligence to govern,
Hmm.
you know, in Zambia. Um, but maybe that's a stretch too far. Maybe like something to do with a full-on unit or
Hmm.
a body or
Hmm.
commission or something
I
that
think
is
I
ready
agree.
for.
I agree with you, but I think their task would be preparing the country for rather than at this particular stage wouldn't be necessarily governing AI, but because that already in itself, the US is already like struggling with that by itself, and also the EU as well.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think more in the sense of like preparing for this. So
yeah,
like I think Zambia is in a strategic position because it can get the head start. Because usually what tends to happen in the tech world is that you have the tech development is way ahead than like the US law can before the law can
yeah.
really catch up. There was an example in the US where like I think they brought in some like tech people and like you can see the legislators from the US, old guys, really old guys, and so
So the
it's like
TikTok one.
you mean to tell me that this and this, and it's like, bro, how many times do I have to explain to you how this thing works, so
Yeah.
usually you find that the law is like steps behind what the
So
technology is already like doing. So I think Zambia has that like great opportunity. But before we
yeah,
close, sorry, you want to say something?
yeah. No, just the last like a last point is
Yeah.
I think Zambia and even Congo, although Congo's governance structure, mineral governance is much further behind than Zambia's. Um, they both should try and see if they can also have a stake in the tech world and AI development and all sorts of things that make life convenient as a result of AI, because that means you control not only the raw material, but you also have a stake in the end product.
Mhm.
Because what is going to happen if you don't have any plan for this mass sort of investment and interest in the Central African Copper Belt is you just be the producer again, right? Our iPhones, our cameras, and so on all have some degree of copper. They have tantalum, they have all of these rare earths. But which iPhone have you heard being manufactured from Eastern Congo
Mm,
or from Solwezi? Like, yeah. So it's important to also understand the end product. Value addition, as they like saying. So
mm,
yeah,
mm. No, that's very
that's
true. Yeah, so just before we close out, I just wanted to get your thoughts as well on like just a few comments that I read under like that I found under the article from the New York Times, and just quick rapid fire. We're closing off. So here's just like three of the comments
just
that
like
I.
for I have to like how many, like one word or what? Like just like a quick
No, no, no,
answer.
just a quick answer. Just like, no need to go into
Okay.
in 1992, 1922. No, 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 none of that, none of that.
Not even. But anyway,
Tony G from Portland states clearly a new scramble for Africa is well underway. When will we learn from the horrors wrought by the Europeans on the Congo, Kenya, Algeria, Ethiopia, and stop trying to get rich by exploiting poor Africans? What say you over that? New scramble? Funny enough, that was
yeah, it
our
is.
first episode.
The new scramble of Africa has been going on since like 2015, 2010. It's
Yeah.
been there for a while. But I think exploitation will always happen. People always need minerals, and not everyone has all the minerals in the world, so they'll always try and exploit. So Africa should just be ready for it, honestly.
Mm. True, true, true. And interesting enough, that was our first episode of this podcast. So, Jack from
Oh yeah, the
Johnstown.
new scramble for Africa,
Jack
episode
from
number one.
okay. Jack from Johnstown states, so AI found nothing. It simply revealed the possible shape of the deposit. Another clickbait strawman headline that skirts a lie so close you can't tell the difference. Pathetic. Interesting.
What's his name or
Jo-
her name?
Jack from Johnstown. That's quite interesting. I think you'd really have to dive deep into like what their AI model does. I know that they didn't necessarily like drill or anything. This is simply like the AI
Mapping.
predicting, yeah, exactly, stating or giving a
Mm.
prediction that there's a very high probability that this is
Mhm.
this is a copper deposit under there. Uh
I don't know how certain it is, but it's probably quite certain. So
yeah.
maybe John is just upset. I don't know
Yeah, yeah,
what's wrong
true,
with it.
true, true. I think yeah. But he could be right. He could. There's a very small possibility that
Could
he could
be,
be right.
who
Yeah,
knows? As a
Uh,
Zambian, I'm hoping.
yeah. The shilling farmer states AI should die. It's an energy sucking use of computers that everyone will suffer for. Well, it is very energy consuming. I read somewhere that one open AI prompt is uses 10% more energy than a Google search. Just think about that. Anytime you type
Really?
anything on OpenAI, yes, exactly. Like, hey, how do I cook this? It uses
Hmm.
10% more energy than a Google search. So energy
That's insane.
sucking is true. That is definitely true. That's why there's this new scramble for Africa. However, comma, I do not think that it should go away. I think that AI is a very useful tool, and
Exactly, I
it's
agree.
useful in various different industries, not only the mining sector, but somebody who's in agriculture. I think it also plays a very huge role in agriculture. So I don't think it should go away. I think that we just need to find a
Well,
way.
agriculture, which is quite critical for like the developing global south, because in more, at least in Africa, a lot of the economy is agriculture based, especially on the
Exactly.
subsistence level.
Precisely.
So AI
And
can help.
it was really cool. I was sitting in a class. One of the professors, one of the students is like they're working on like these, on tractors. They have like cameras that help
Mhm.
detect like where a particular plant is, so that it sprays like specifically only on that plant and not like boom spraying where which is also wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of helps save
like more
the
precise.
more precise, saves,
Mm.
and also a little bit better for the environment. So I think that there is some positives. Just like the
Yeah,
internet, I think there are some positives, there are some negatives. We just need to find a way to,
to
make sure
balance it
that it
out.
balance it out. Yeah, because while the shilling farmer is, stating this, there are some negatives to AI, which I think haven't necessarily been highlighted as much. But nonetheless, I digress. There's so many good comments here, man. But I will go to
Mhm.
Anjan from
And John,
Vienna.
okay,
Anjan from Vienna, VA. Do
nice,
the good
Vienna.
citizens of Zambia get a say in all of this? Looks like a good old fashioned neo-colonialism to me.
Well, yeah, well, Zambians have a say, but whether their say is counted, who knows? Like, yeah, because the actual people, who knows whether no actual major conference has been done on these discoveries.
I don't even think.
Uh,
I don't know. I don't read a lot of Zambian newspapers, but I don't think it was even written in any major newspaper,
yeah, in Zambia, it wasn't the biggest story in Zambia, honestly.
which
Like,
is crazy.
yeah, it was the biggest story outside Zambia than in Zambia.
Which is crazy. Yeah,
Very crazy.
that is
So,
really crazy.
um, those Zambians who have commented on it are quite suspicious.
Yeah, I don't think I've
So,
no, I don't think I've seen any. Maybe there are Zambians in, but the names don't sound. Maybe Jack is Zambian. Maybe, but Shilling Farmer sounds like somebody from East Africa.
was this
Tony G potentially could be, but I don't know. Some of these are from largely from the U.S. I mean, which would you expect because it's the New York Times.
mm, yeah.
But yeah, like it's kind of sad that like this isn't a major talking point in Zambia because
Yeah, no, I think there needs to be more awareness of the way copper is managed in Zambia. I think we know how copper is managed in Zambia because
yeah,
we have like one tagline, oh, the past was great, now it's terrible. Like
yeah,
that's our like yeah, the average Zambian I think knows. Okay, compared to other countries that don't have copper, yes, we do know more about copper because it's our food, but they don't really know how it's managed, which
true.
is why we had an episode actually on mineral governance earlier in the year.
Mm,
That was actually an
shameless
interesting one.
plug. Nice transition.
Yeah, of
Nice,
course.
nice,
Why not?
nice. Or not. I know I
Yeah.
said that was my last comment, but this one is really interesting. It comes from Eric. Last comment. Last comment. By the way, most of these comments that are down here are not very kind to the new AI discovery. Most of them are very pessimistic. That I found here. So the last one says from Eric Fredrickson. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say their names, but anyways, it's up here.
I mean,
Ashenville,
it's public.
NC. It's public. Yeah, so yeah. From Asheville. Oh, it's Asheville. I said Ashenville. Took me a lot. Asheville, NC. So AI found itself some copper. How long before it finds itself some guns to rid itself of carbon-based life forms?
To rid itself of what? Sorry.
So AI found itself some copper. How long before it finds itself some guns to rid itself of carbon-based life forms?
Yeah, that's crazy. The robot taking over the world.
Yeah, I don't
Remember
know.
that movie as a kid, the
I
robot
Robot
movie?
with
I
Will Smith.
Robot. Yeah, I should watch it again. Yeah,
It seems to be becoming a bit of a reality.
seems to be coming true.
I
Oh,
don't know.
actually, funny enough, like side note, the I don't know which bank it was, like a major like bank. I don't know if it's JP Morgan or
Mhm.
Goldman Sachs. They actually created an AI
Oh yes,
to
yes, yes.
rid,
I read that. I read that.
yeah, for
Yeah,
like
yeah,
research analysts and all like the
yeah,
junior jobs might be
yeah.
wiped
Exactly.
out.
No, yeah.
And funny enough,
Yeah. Sorry. Go
someone
ahead.
was like, someone was like, we should create a chat GPT to remove the CEO, just like
Yeah.
replace him. I,
No, I think yeah, there are some negatives to the AI thing, especially like if your job can be replaced, like you better start like looking into it. I think, yeah. So that case, I think it was, I don't know if it was Goldman Sachs, but there are two major banks now that have created their own AI systems. The bank that did the article, it was funny enough that they had actually released 30,000 analysts.
wow,
Uh, but this wasn't
that's
related to AI, but they had released 30,000 analysts. And then now with this new AI thing, who
they don't
knows?
come back.
Yeah, who knows what's going to basically what's going to happen.
There's
Um, yeah,
no one but CEOs are safe.
precisely. Yeah, and I think those are the guys who are kind of like really pushing for the AI because it really helps them save quite a lot of money, and that's why I think that's what's really driving this. Some of the stories I've heard are really sad. Like for example, I watched a video of a graphics designer who really stated that he dedicated himself to this company, give it like not going on vacation sometimes, doing all these types of things, and they built an AI, and in order to necessarily build these things, you need to train them on data, and the data they used to train it was
Mhm.
his graphic designs. And once it was able to produce, they basically let him go.
So they basically stole his stuff and then just told
Yeah,
him to go.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
it's kind of a cruel AI world out there, but kind of need to learn
Yeah.
how to pivot. But yeah, so that
Pivot
was
sounds such an appropriate word. You just said pivot. Anyway, it's fine.
what? What'd you
You
say?
said you said pivot. Like this immediately I hear that word, I just think of corporate lingo.
Ah, right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a pivot. It's like, okay, you weirdo.
No, man, you just
Strange.
have to. You just have to. But yeah, that's it for today's episode. Yeah, be sure to check out our next one and check out our old ones. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Be sure to leave us a review, and yeah, see you
Yeah,
guys
follow
on
us on
the
Instagram as well.
follow us on all platforms if you could, please. That would be great. That's the best way to support us. And yeah, thank you so much for listening again, and catch you guys on the next one.
I am an African.